Today I'm at University of Wisconsin debating self-proclaimed carnivore Sam. I lured him in with reverse psychology to see if Rob Zombie was right when he said everyone loves animals until they hear the word vegan. Then they'll argue tooth and nail why it's acceptable to abuse them. Will Sam argue in favor of animal abuse, or will he reconsider his carnivorous ways?
So what are your kind of initial thoughts on that statement?
Well, I mean, first I would like to know why you believe that animals should be abused.
Sure. So animals should be abused because they're not human. So humans are smarter, we're more dominant. Survival of the fittest, it's the circle of life. We've been abusing them for our entire history, and it's fun, it's enjoyable. So why wouldn't we?
Oh, I believe that as we are significantly more dominant than the other creatures on the planet, that it would make sense that we can take advantage of them, but I don't think we need to do it needlessly. I don't think we should go out of our way to abuse them.
But we can abuse them. Under what conditions can we abuse them?
Well, I think we should treat them humanely, not put them in small cages and force them to just stay in a single place until they are, slaughtered or killed, or otherwise ended.
But why can't we just do whatever we want to them? What is it about them that means they deserve any sort of moral consideration? I mean, they're not human.
They're cute.
Pigs are not cute.
Well, we can still derive pleasure from their existence without necessarily ending that existence or harming them in other manners.
So you don't think we should ever end their existence?
Oh, no. I mean, I'm very, very carnivorous. I eat a lot of meat. So I do think that it's not necessarily detrimental to raise cattle and, of course, butcher the cattle.
Let's talk about what constitutes as abuse. So what would you say is abuse?
I would say abuse is when it provides no other benefit other than to harm the creature. It provides no additional benefit to us.
What if the benefit is enjoyment?
Well, I think that typically for people who enjoy abusing or otherwise harming creatures, there's other issues typically present within their mind, because I'm pretty sure that's an indicator of, I'm not sure about this, so don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure that's indicative of being a psychopath or a sociopath, not sure which.
So you're saying it's only bad because it could be harmful to the human, nothing to do with the animal?
I mean, it is morally, it depends on your personal beliefs, but I think that as long as it's not unnecessary, then it can be reasonably acceptable to harm an animal.
So as long as the abuse is not unnecessary, it's okay to harm an animal?
It depends on the context. If you could reasonably be fine with the situation without hurting an animal. Say a wolf is attacking you. Yeah, it makes sense. Defend yourself. Same thing with a dog. But if you can reasonably avoid it, say you just don't walk into the woods wearing a suit of meat and just shouting, trying to get wolf's attention, that would constitute foolish behavior, and you deserve what you get.
So is there some element of animal suffering in this? We should avoid harming animals because it causes unnecessary suffering?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So what about the animals, in the meat industry? You said you eat a lot of animals. You're essentially a carnivore. Yeah. So do you have to eat animals, or is that a choice?
You don't have to eat animals, but I personally like the flavor. I like how it tastes. It provides health benefits because it's an easy source of a high amount of protein. It does have some drawbacks, especially with red meat, but for fish and chicken, it provides a good amount of protein for the amount of meat that is present.
But you said earlier that if abusing an animal is unnecessary, it's bad. And then you just said that we don't have to eat animals and you do it partially because you like it. And earlier you said that enjoyment wasn't a good enough reason to abuse animals. So it sounds like you're walking back your logic and that maybe you do think animals deserve to be abused.
Now, I will say that is slightly twisting my words,
Okay.
but it, in the sense that for meat, I do derive enjoyment from it, but that's not the only reason.
Sure.
There's other reasons why I would consume it.
But you don't have to.
Strictly speaking, you do not biologically need to consume meat. However,
So we agree it's unnecessary animal abuse.
that I would disagree with.
On what grounds?
One of the major reasons we've gotten this far as a species is through our consumption of meat, because it provides a huge amount of calories and protein and fats and things we need to develop. But if we didn't do that, we would likely still be a lot further back in our development. And
So you're saying essentially in times of food scarcity, we needed to rely on eating animals in order to evolve to this point. So in those times, it was necessary, but that doesn't provide a moral, or that doesn't provide a justification for consuming them now, because we already agreed that it's not necessary now, right?
that is one way to look at it, yes. And it is, again, strictly speaking, not necessary. But the point I was trying to make with the ancestral argument is that it is part of our heritage, and it still provides a really effective source of energy.
So is there anything else that's been part of our heritage that we no longer do, maybe because we became a little more moral, or we realized we didn't have to do it anymore? For example, there was a lot of tribal warfare, a lot of genocide, things like that. That got us to this point, but we wouldn't say we can still do that because we did it in the past, right?
I mean, we still kind of do that.
Right, but
If we're being
it's
honest.
morally wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. So
But
let's...
that also comes with the argument that it's not animals in those specific scenarios. It's humans that we would be affecting.
Sure. The main tenet I was testing was that the fact that we've always done something shouldn't have any relevance to whether or not we still do it. Would you agree with that? Okay. So now let's talk about this kind of, you're kind of talking about nutrition, how maybe we get some benefit from eating animals. Could we get all the nutrients we need without abusing animals?
Strictly speaking, yes.
Okay, sure. So, well, it kind of keeps going back to that it's unnecessary animal abuse, which when you sat down, you said you were against. So how can you argue in favor of eating animals if, by your own admission, it's unnecessary and it is animal abuse?
As I've said, when I say that, strictly speaking, we can get away without meat,
Sure.
that is only through extensive and oftentimes expensive methods to get your protein and nutrients that you would get from meat from other sources.
Where did you learn that?
That's generally what I've experienced in life. Like when I'm at the grocery store, I often see that like the Beyond Meat is significantly, well, not significant, a good portion more expensive than like, say, ramen, like the beef flavored ramen that's just...
Yeah, I think if you're comparing Beyond Meat to ramen, definitely it's more expensive. The thing is, like, I think people kind of have this false perception of what a plant-based diet would look like, right? Because you see the plant-based substitutes, and you're right, they can sometimes be more expensive. But the cheapest foods by far at the grocery stores are beans, rice, vegetables, certain fruits. And these are all dirt cheap things that do have protein, tofu, tempeh. When they did a systematic review of different diets and prices in Western countries, they found that vegan diets actually came in 30% cheaper than omnivore diets, which is, a lot of people think that's crazy because you're right. You kind of look at the substitutes. So kind of taking the expensive part off the table, do you think it would be hard to get the nutrients you need? You said something about like extensive supplementation or something. Do you think that that's the case?
Well, it depends, I'd say, on the price range. Like, if you do use the raw materials, as you say yourself, how they're cheaper, it would typically take a lot of research to make sure you get all the like essential amino acids and the right amount of protein, because oftentimes plant products fill you up a lot faster and have a lot less concentration of the macro and micronutrients you would need.
Certain plant products for sure. Like if you're going to try to eat 2,000 calories of spinach, that would be impossible. But there's plenty of very dense, nutritionally plant foods. And in terms of protein, most people have no idea how much protein they're getting. Like, how much protein do you get a day?
Probably 30 to 40 grams.
Yeah, you could easily achieve that on a plant-based diet. I've already had 30, 40 grams today. But I think the thing is that, people imagine it to be really hard, but it's actually not that much harder. And the benefit is that, you are kind of going along with what you think, which is the animals shouldn't be abused unnecessarily. So if you do have that belief, I'm curious, like, what would stop you from saying, all right, I'm going to stop paying for these animal products?
I really don't know. That's something where it'd have to be like a sort of scenario by scenario, like, because there's certain things that, I don't know, I'd find it hard to give up meat products because I really enjoy the flavor, and I do believe that it does provide certain benefits that would be hard or expensive to replicate in a plant-based diet.
So if you found out that the second one wasn't true, as we kind of talked about, and if it just came down to that enjoyment, earlier we agreed, or you said, that enjoyment was not a good reason to abuse animals. Would you still let that enjoyment, influence your decision to consume animals?
To a degree, I would say. However, there's also environments on farms where it's like free-range chicken, or where the animals are treated humanely until they're butchered for meat.
Do you want to see some videos of that? Sure. So these, I'm going to show you products that are all advertised as humane and free-range and whatnot, and you can kind of just see what you think of it. Does that look ethical to you?
Not particularly.
Do you think killing animals unnecessarily, does that constitute abuse?
The products are still consumed and provide nutrients for people. So
does it constitute abuse?
I would say in this scenario with the beef video, no.
No? So you don't think there's anything abusive about killing an animal when you don't need to? Because it seemed like at the beginning you said unnecessary abuse was bad.
In this scenario, the cow that is slaughtered provides meat for people to consume, and it also provides a source of economic profit for the farmer.
But it's meat that the people don't need. It's still by default unnecessary because, we talked about earlier, you don't need to eat animals to survive and thrive. So whether or not it provides food to people is irrelevant because it's still unnecessary.
I suppose you could view it like that.
Yeah, and as far as providing, economic incentive to people, like what if I wanted to start a dog fighting ring and it was going to make me a lot of money? Would you say that would therefore be moral because I would make money from it?
That's a fair point. I would say probably it wouldn't be moral, obviously.
Sure. It's almost like, we've been raised in these cultures where we're taught to view farm animals as so differently from the other animals we interact with in our lives, right? Like dogs and cats and even some birds. We appreciate and we respect them as the conscious individuals that they are. But when it comes to farm animals, we view them as products, as commodities, as resources to be used. So a lot of this is kind of getting people out of their cultural conditioning to see the animals as individuals who are deserving as rights as opposed to an economic source. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I will say that is a very valid point of view, and I can understand why you would come to that conclusion.
Cool. So where does this leave you, this discussion? Like, what do you think about you sat down, you said abusing animals unnecessarily is bad. We've kind of talked about the ways in which consuming animals is unnecessary and is, harmful toward the animals. So where does that leave you in terms of your current lifestyle?
I don't know. Gives me a good bit to think about with how I move forward.
Cool. All right, awesome. Did you have any other questions for me?
Not really.
Cool. Well, I want to say I appreciated this. I know I kind of put you on the spot and tricked you into...
Oh, no, I pretty much understood that
you
the
knew?
second I sat down.
You were acting like you didn't.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I was like, I've got this guy.
Give you that.
Nice. I appreciate it. But yeah, thank you so much. And I'm going to leave you with resources and stuff because, until you do make the change to vegan, animals are going to be abused because of your actions. And there is a very easy way to avoid it. And I'd like to give you some more information on how to do it. So thank you.
Oh, nice meeting you.
If you enjoyed this, hit that like button. And if you want to support my work while donating to animal rights organizations, check out my Patreon. This month we donated $103 to CAFT USA.